Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Arts and Crimes. We made it. And I'm your host, Kelly.
And 1, 2, 3. Josh!
I didn't know what we were doing.
We're doing that game. We're trying to say the same word.
All right. Well,
Dude,
but were we supposed to both say Josh?
No.
Your
name is Brandon.
Yeah, my name is Brandon. My name's Brandon.
And I'm Josh.
And today, we a little gamer here.
What? Let's hear that one again.
I just
caper.
I just was so excited because we have a guest host today, and I'm just really excited to introduce you guys to my very good friend, Dajany.
Hello.
Oh.
I gotta have my socialness.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I have been a fan for the whole time, listening to every episode. And I was so excited when you were going to make a podcast. So I'm just so happy to be here.
Yeah, she was there when I would talk about it at work, like as like a possibility, and here it is, real. And now she's on it.
So you know how she got on the podcast?
I was actually just gonna say she
Hold on,
paid.
wait.
Man.
We're gonna see whose joke is better, okay? Take A, Brandon.
I'll cut
go.
the one that's not good.
Oh yeah, all right. And listeners, she paid a very reasonable price to be on the pod. So if you at all are interested, just reach out on our Instagram account, and we'll get you on here.
That was a good one.
That was pretty good. I was gonna say, and she got on the pod because of our sweepstakes with blue coal. She found a gold nugget in her bag of coal. And that meant she got to tour the factory. Blue coal, the only coal that's safe enough to eat.
I am a longtime user of blue coal. It's true.
Yeah. You can tell because she's got the blue fingers.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
sign, yeah.
because they died at the factory.
Dang it, my joke's getting cut.
Keep them going.
What would be even better is if I say I'll cut whose joke is worse and then only put one joke so they know that somebody's joke was cut.
Oh, that's where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not gonna listen to the pod. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Don't tell us.
Don't tell me. Yeah. So this week, this episode is brought to you by Dajany. I'm really excited. This feels very weird, but I'm going to be the one that's just joining in with the shenanigans and derailing things. And but Dajany is also a teacher, so she's a professional at getting us back on track. So yeah,
Kelly will
I'm
finally
usually
have her revenge.
part of the derailing.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm really excited. Boyles was telling me
She calls it Boyles.
Yeah, Kelly goes by Boyles at school. But she was talking about like what do we do for the next podcast? And I thought about it and I was like, okay, what about Weegee? And she's like, who's that?
Do you mean Luigi?
No, Weegee.
Oh, okay.
Weegee.
Inventor of the Ouija board.
Okay, so we'll get there. Which is so there's two stories on how he got his name. But first I want you. So Weegee was really the first famous crime photographer.
Really?
Yeah, and so and probably still the most famous. So I want you to think in your minds about how would you describe a press photographer in the 1930s and 40s? If you could picture him in your mind right now, what would you picture?
Got
We're
a
in a hat.
fedora. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely we're
Fedora
in a
with a
hat.
piece of paper coming out
Okay.
the top.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely lots of like grays,
Yes,
grays,
sure.
blues.
Like a business
Yeah.
suit.
Yes.
Okay.
Right?
He's got a camera, probably.
Yes.
I also
I feel pretty
imagine
certain
him-
about that.
I feel like he probably
Wait.
talks like he's slightly a Muppet. You know, he's like, "Oh, we gotta go take a picture of this stiff out here." You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
He looks like Humphrey Bogart.
I actually listened to his autobiography, and I don't know if the reader meant to sound like him, but it sounded just like that.
That's amazing.
Really?
Yeah,
Was I the narrator?
could be. So, any other thoughts before I show you his picture?
Glasses, maybe?
Patent shoes.
Oh, I snuck a look.
Patent
Yeah.
leather.
You can't give any more
I
opinions.
can't. Yeah, I can't.
Okay, so
Hold on, we're not done.
Tweed.
okay,
Is he wearing tweed?
6'1". He has dark hair, salt and pepper, a full, thick beard like a lumberjack.
I think you went drifted away on that one.
Okay, that he shaved off
Yeah, he brought it back.
as a youth. When he was just a child, just a wee lad, knee-high to a grasshopper with his full, thick, salt and pepper beard. A very fit, strong man. He's got a broad barrel chest.
Okay.
And
This is a reporter you're describing.
Yeah, he's got it's a dad bod is what he's got.
a dad bod?
Yeah.
No, I think he's a wiry. He's wiry.
No.
I take back the barrel chested.
He's like a pear shape.
He's like a cricket.
A cricket?
You know how they're known for being wiry? Anyway, I think we
That's
got it.
yeah.
I think we
Okay.
nailed it.
Accurately described him.
Okay, this is Weegee.
Oh,
It
there's
disappeared.
another.
It went away.
Oh, there.
That's right as you turned it
Dang it, just as I
minimized.
turned
It was
Where-
there and then it got minimized.
There it is. There it is. Hold up.
I don't know.
I
If,
could just Google it on
Nope.
my phone.
Okay.
That's
Nope.
our usual.
There you
Right
go.
there.
Yeah, usually they Google it.
all right. You said dark hair, right?
Yeah.
I'll bring
Yeah.
I got one
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
right.
He didn't have a hat.
He does usually have a hat. The fedora is accurate. Often crumpled. His suit is often rumpled.
Oh,
He's
interesting.
always
look at
got
that
a
stogie.
cigar hanging out of his mouth.
Yeah, chomping on that cigar.
Is that the kind of camera you pictured?
No, I pictured a more traditional.
Like more
a-
traditional?
Oh.
Yeah.
What's that
So-
one that starts with an L? That's been around.
Leica.
Yeah, like a Leica.
Like a.
This is the
Sounds like a rap song.
the 4x5 speed graphic by Graflex is the camera that he used. To start, he eventually moved to more traditional cameras along the way. But
So,
So what?
I didn't want to say it, but I was kind of envisioning the guy with like the little powder thing over
Yeah.
that
there.
blows up.
Yeah.
And this is
Not
like
far
halfway
off.
between that.
yeah, so yeah, we're
It has that big like round, almost like silver bowl looking flash, and,
And
then
you
it
have to
has,
replace the bulb when you take a picture.
yes,
Is that- yeah.
So the bulb, when the flash goes off, the bulb needs to be then replaced. It's a one-use bulb.
And does it? Have,
And it's
Yeah.
as big as a lamp bulb, as big as a bulb you use
That's
in your
wild.
lamp today.
Can
Does
you
it have
imagine
the, like,
that's a
slidey?
backpack full of light bulbs every time you want to take pictures? You're like, all right.
Yeah.
load me
Yeah.
up.
And these cameras, so if you notice, it's like 4 inches by 5 inches. It's got an accordion front.
Yeah.
And the viewfinder is just like a little,
Dial.
little thing that you flip up. So you actually, it's not really a viewfinder. It's
So it
just
doesn't
like,
use like a
you just
prism
kind
to
of-
split it.
Yeah,
It's just
no,
like,
it's just like you just aim
this is the general area that you're
roughly,
looking.
yeah. And
Hope you
the
guessed right.
film at the beginning, the film that he used, it was just like one use. You'd have one piece of film.
Is
one
it like
shot.
that big kind of thing you have to like slide in and
Yes.
slide out like
only
shukunk?
and only this was they weren't glass. In this case, they were flexible, but they weren't rolled at this stage.
Weird.
So
I do think also you were correct. He looks like he has a dad bod.
he does, and he's actually
Could
he's
have sworn
actually
it looked
short.
like a cricket.
But really, the image that we think of typically. Now you had a lot more descriptors, but the image that we think of usually as the press photographer from the 30s and 40s is Weegee.
Yeah.
Because he was the guy, he made a name for himself. And what's kind of interesting is that until Weegee came along, career like photojournalists and news photographers were never named. Like the byline would say the news agency
Really?
and not the person. Yeah.
Interesting.
And he was the first to really he would stamp he had a stamp made of his with his name that said, the famous made by the photographed by the famous Weegee.
Really?
Or Weegee the famous. Yeah.
Oh, it included
Weegee
the famous.
the famous.
No,
So
yeah. So he
That's what the
he
youth
was
call-
envisioning it.
I know, that's
and
called
putting it out there.
No, he
manifesting.
really. This guy is. I think this guy is the embodiment of hustle.
Yeah.
Like he knew how to hustle, and that's how he got to where he was.
Which was taking pictures of dead bodies.
Yeah. So he actually has kind of
So reductive.
a two
Crime scenes.
almost like his career in photography kind of has two parts, right? So we've got the 30s and 40s crime photography, and then like around 45 he moved to Hollywood and he started to do a lot of celebrity stuff, but hardly anybody knows about that work.
Really?
Because and what's interesting is he made way more money doing that work.
Yeah, makes sense.
But he's way more famous for the work he did before that.
It's probably because the stuff that he was doing, like the celebrity photos, he was making a lot of money about it, but like it was for the celebrity, almost like a personal commission instead of something that like was out in the public being seen and consumed. Where this was like, you know, he's getting hired by these famous people because he's famous, and they're just like having their portraits in their house and that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's making lots of money, but it's not anything that's impacting the actual.
I would love it
people.
if the celebrities were like, listen, I want the full Weegee treatment. He's like, great, get on the floor. Smear this on your chest. This is ketchup. This is what I'm good at. And they're like, oh, yes, this is it.
But to make it authentic, go and hide somewhere in the city till someone finds you and calls you in, and I'll come find you and take photos of it.
Yeah.
Take one shoe off.
Yeah.
Put your neck all the way backwards. Or your head.
Yeah. So, he really, but there are two stories as to how he got his name, and I'm going to tell you both of them, okay? So, just going back, he was born in like 1899. He was born as, his real name is Asher Felig, but when he came across in 1909 at Ellis Island, they changed it to Arthur.
Oh. That seems like
Sad.
he was
Like,
that
like
doesn't,
Asher doesn't.
Asher's
I-
cooler.
pronounceable.
Yeah, so he's in what is now Ukraine is where he was born. And then he grew up on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and he became fascinated with photography at a young age. And he started by actually he would rent a pony, and then he would go down the neighborhood streets and get kids on this pony and take their picture, and then he would go to the parents and sell those pictures for $0.10 a piece, and the poorest parents would pay that.
that really is a hustle.
It was a hustle. And then how that ended was
He trimmed his beard.
That's how it ended. The corral that his horse was being housed, where his pony was being housed, there was this huge flood, and then he couldn't afford to pay for the all that because he wasn't able to use the pony, and so he had to just leave the pony there.
And the poor people didn't want pictures of their kids unless there was a pony involved. He started coming around and can I take your picture? They're like, where's the freaking pony, man?
Well, it was a way to get the kids to let him take their picture because they got a free pony ride.
Can you imagine if we tried this hustle today?
You feel so quick.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
The first house is calling the cops on you. What are you doing with my kid on that pony?
Yeah.
Taking his picture. What? That's even worse.
Just show up to a park. Hey, kids, who wants to ride this pony?
I got
stranger danger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it wouldn't work.
So at the time, what was normal for portraits? Were these kids, these parents, unable to buy portraits of their kids?
It just wasn't common. Cameras were not at this point. I think the regular person could afford a Kodak Brownie, but that was upper middle class. And the Kodak Brownie was the box camera. It was just a brick. It looks like a brick. And
Did it have the tripod?
No.
What was that
No,
one?
you just hold it and push the thing down. There's no viewfinder. You just point and shoot. And it would take 100 pictures, and you would send the whole camera back
Really?
to Kodak, and Kodak would process your pictures and reload your camera for you and send it back. And it took 2 to 3 weeks.
So one step away from the disposable camera.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So, and so the general public, the photography didn't exist for the general public yet.
Well,
I
it was the
remember-
Victorian era.
Yeah.
That's true. I remember.
Oh yeah, it was still, I guess. Yeah.
And we're still in the same zone.
Yeah.
Because I remember learning about photography, as far as when it first was kind of introduced, it was really looked down on as an art form. People were really mad about this newfangled technology and didn't want to
going to put painters out of business.
Yeah, paintings and portraiture and that kind of stuff. They were like, they can't do what we do, and it was like this big hubbub. Was it during this time?
Well, yes, it was. Well, this was a little bit later, because early photography, where it was where, photography tried to mimic painting. Photographers did, to kind of, and at first photography is meant to document and to record, document evidence,
like more of a tool,
more
for
of a tool
historical
for observation. Yes. And so, but eventually photography and the photographer that's really helped photography become an art form was Alfred Stieglitz. And
he's so good.
Yeah. And he
so good.
The Sieg Man, yeah.
Was he the guy that did like Hemingway and Churchill and a whole bunch of famous people? A portrait photographer, or am I thinking of someone else?
I think he might have. He wasn't as much
Google Stieglitz most famous photo, and it'll be like people on a rail. Yeah, the steerage. People on a rail. Like, it's just such a gorgeous photo of human beings existing.
And what's the first thing your eyes see?
How do you spell Stieglitz?
Stieglitz.
Oh, Yusuf Karsh. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yes.
That's a little more modern.
Yeah, he's a little bit more modern.
I'm looking for
The steerage.
The steerage?
We like to do this a lot. It gets mostly cut out where
No,
we Google images.
I listened to you guys Googling images most recently on
But
this
now you
last
see
one.
the full process.
Yeah.
And it's so
I trim it
riveting.
down.
And it's okay.
So rich.
So here's this picture.
My eyes are drawn to the plank.
Yeah, the plank there in the middle is probably where I keep coming back to. This is the dichotomy of man.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, there's these people down here, and then those people up there, and the people up there are looking down on them, being like, "You guys aren't up here."
Are so lame.
Okay.
Is this the picture? Are we looking at the right picture?
Oh man, this is what happens when you have non-artsy people.
I want to be able to see.
I know, you're like,
Like,
what do you see?
what
And
do
we're
you
like,
see?
A piece of wood.
There's people in it.
I'm pretty sure there's people. Like, oh yeah, it's what I see right away.
Yeah.
Right above the plank where you guys were looking, middle, like center, top third of the photo, there's
Look at
a
that
hat.
Okay,
Yeah, I see the hat.
Gorgeous.
the hat is
The
gorgeous.
round-
The
hat.
framing, the moment,
how
it's so busy, and there's all this dark, and then it's framed by all of this contrast, and the leading lines bring you towards the hat, and then there he is, just
And then he's looking down, and you're like, "What's he looking at?"
and you
then
can see all those people.
And
Oh,
then you
man.
see there's a poor
I
person.
think I have a hard time appreciating this so much because in my bathroom at home I have this picture I took of some ducks, and and
That's not the funny
like
part.
This guy
there's
has
a white
nothing on those ducks.
there's this white duck in the middle, but then you look over to the side and there's this duck that's like, huh? And it just catches your eyes, you know?
You're the next Stieglitz.
I love it.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's where we're at in photography.
So it's no longer like I just was wondering. I guess we sort of like meandered a little bit.
We did,
but like it's after the time where people are sort of accepting it as an art form. So he's not having to
starting to be accepted as an art form, and but his work, what he's like. He's not in that world yet, right?
Weegee.
So he's just trying to make a living.
We never even found out where he got his name from.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
So there are two stories. So I just wanted to give you background, like, first. And then, so his first, like, real job was with, he was working at the New York Times as a squeegee boy.
Squeegee.
Okay.
He's like, there's a slight ring to that. I
Yeah.
just want to tweak it.
And so it was in his 20s. It was before he was selling his own pictures. He worked in the dark room. So when you're working in the dark room, it's a lot of water and chemicals and stuff. And so he was in the assembly line to drive prints before they were pressed onto the ferrite plates for final finishing. So the reporters, and then they'd run them to the reporters, right? So the guys would yell, "Squeegee," and then he would come and squeegee off their print, and then they would pass it along, right? Mm-hmm. Well, hold on, that doesn't matter. You can cut this out. So when he took another job at the Acme newspaper agency, he moved up to printing photos himself, and when his colleagues found out that he had until recently been a squeegee boy, they needled him about it. So they were teasing him about being a squeegee boy. And over time, as he gained their respect...
That sounds a little vulgar. Like, oh, a squeegee boy. Huh? Would you get over here and give me one of those little squeegees you're so famous for? Come on, squeegee boy.
Why does the shadow keep coming back?
That was not intended to be the shadow.
Squeegee boy. I have to say, too, that I think I was the lone listener that asked for the shadow. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
You got exactly what you paid for.
So over time, as he gained their respect and his technical skills became evident, the mockery flipped into praise. Squeegee boy turned to Mr. Squeegee, and then eventually became Weegee. And this is a quote from his friend. He says, like, practically everything he ever owned, the name got worn down. So if you imagine Weegee, he was very like disheveled looking man. He would wear suits, but not well. Mm-hmm. Like, and he was always in worn out shoes and, everything. So
there's some people that just don't look right in a suit.
Yeah. So that's one story. The other story
Hold on, though. He shouldn't have stopped at Mr. Squeegee. He should have been like, "No, I'm Lord Squeegee." Like, he just kept moving up the thing.
Lord Squeegee.
Viscount Squeegee.
Well, I mean, he changed it to Weegee the Famous.
Yeah,
so
that's
true.
We did do that.
I still just adore that he stamped it himself as Weegee the Famous.
I know, and he started doing that as early as like 1925. And he wasn't, like, he eventually published a book of his photographs called Naked City, and that was in 1945.
Called what now?
Naked City.
I like the sound of
That's
this
right,
book.
listeners. Naked.
Naked City. Let's have a look at this book, shall we? It's just buildings.
So...
Actually, there are very few buildings in that.
What?
In that book. Well, because the idea of Naked City, it was like he would be up at like midnight. He would go out at midnight and he would be out all night long.
Was it just like
until
raw
like
photos
7
of
in the morning?
existing?
Yeah, and so he used his flash all the time. And it's like he's known for that stark black and white photography with that extreme contrast from the flash, right? And so he's with his flash exposing the underbelly of the city, exposing, like, he would take pictures of like he grew up in tenement housing, right? So he would he knew that in the hot summer nights, people would sleep out on the fire escapes.
Naked?
To escape the city. Well, I mean, practically, there's one of...
Oh, yeah. Bring it back.
One of his really famous...
She takes you guys far too seriously.
One of his famous photos is of, 5 children, all on one fire escape.
I saw that.
Yeah. Just curled together, like, spooning together, and just...
Isn't that, counterintuitive? Like, you're trying to escape the heat, but then you're all curled
together.
But
it's like, yeah, I guess. But I think it's the only way to get any kind of relief. Movement. Yeah, so at least the tops of them are getting some amount of breeze.
That's crazy.
Think about living in one of those buildings in a high-rise, in a tenement building with no air conditioning. Mm-hmm. It would get... it'd be like an oven in there.
Yeah.
That would be the worst camera for a peeping Tom to own.
I know.
Who sneaks up to the window and goes, "Oh, what have we here?" And sets up and then
yeah.
Run for it, Weegee.
Well, that's the thing. He was brazen. He was so brazen about, like, he did not care. He would see people, like, making out in the corners, and he would flash them, you know? Not like,
Oh, yeah. We're back.
That's why he wore the trench coat.
This is me. I always say the wrong thing.
It's the right thing.
But he would do that, and then eventually he was able, as it came about, he was able to switch to, gosh, why did I blank? Infrared.
Consensual photography.
No, infrared film.
Really?
Yeah. And so people didn't know they were getting their picture taken.
That's so much better.
So that worked better for his peeping Tomery.
I got a new camera.
He's walking around with a pony.
Yeah.
That one hit a chord.
Okay. Do you want to know the other way he got his name?
Yeah.
The other
You can't tease
theory?
it and then not say it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So its origins may come because he claimed to be clairvoyant. He claimed to be psychic. He claimed that he got a mysterious tingle in his elbow.
Look, if there's anything...
An elbow tingle?
if there's anything we're good at in this pod, it's solving things that haven't been solved forever. We know, we figured out everything about King Toot.
That he's King Tut.
And we know... I think we solved the crimes about Van Gogh. Like, you guys solved it all. So.
And we figured out Bigfoot's deal, yeah.
They know Bigfoot. They'll solve this, whatever it is.
Sorry.
Okay.
Spoilers.
So he claimed to get a mysterious tingle in his elbow, and when the news was about to break, and then he would get to the scene of the crime just in time. Eventually, someone, the sources varied, said that a secretary had once said something like, "It's as if you have a Ouija board," and so then he took that and spelled it phonetically, right?
So the Ouija board idea, I think, is so funny because he's like, all right, I want to talk to ghosts, but only if you've been killed in the last, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I got to get there.
Yeah. Well, and so what's funny is that he later says, I changed it to make it easier for the fan mail. That's such a Ouija thing to say, I think.
Guy.
Yeah. So... that's him. And
End a pod.
Yeah.
All right. Print it.
She's so
Can't cut any of it.
So what we've got is a famous photographer.
So let me tell you about him.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let's recap.
Is the crime here watching people unawares as they are intimate with each other? That's the crime in arts and crimes. Here's a man who wandered the streets at 2 a.m. with his infrared camera. Climbing up the sides of buildings
with a
special tingle going on.
So he's like the inspiration for tingle sense.
Tingle sense.
Yeah.
But he did
This guy is the inspiration for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
They just made it a lot cooler.
Oh yeah, because Spider-Man
gets his Peter Tingle.
Camera person. Yeah. His Peter Tingle.
I feel like...
What'd you say that was so funny?
That wasn't me. That was the Peter Tingle.
I feel like I'm 10 times funnier when Dajany's around.
I'm sorry, I laughed.
I didn't want to say anything, but yeah, you're usually about 1/10 as funny.
I know it.
She's so funny.
Okay.
I was doing a lecture once for my students, and Dajany walked in and then sat and listened to the lecture. And every single joke that I'm accustomed to getting zero reaction from, she laughed so hard that I had to pause a couple times. And the students were still not laughing at anything. So it was just me teaching with Dajany laughing at every single one of the jokes that I put in there for myself. Yeah. My students never laugh, but
I should be your laugh track.
You really should. But when she left, I was like, it's so nice to you forget as a teacher that you actually can be a funny human.
You're hilarious.
Because when I'm with my students, most of the time they just
they don't think we're funny at all.
No, I get
Why do they even listen to the pod then?
I don't know.
They must like something you're doing.
I mean, maybe it's because it's my advanced kids and I've had them for
Yeah.
enough time that they actually feel
They get-
fine laughing.
Yeah. I think that high schoolers are embarrassed to laugh
Yeah.
at our jokes because they might be seen as like nerds or kiss ups if they do.
If they do, yeah. You got to really catch them unawares. Like,
I'm the same way with all people in my life, that I think they're probably just embarrassed to laugh at my jokes. And all of them find me funny all the time. But they just can't laugh. It's real hard for them.
yeah. It's a trial.
Yeah.
Okay.
My favorite thing to say to Boyles is your talent is wasted here.
She says that all the time. I feel so great.
She's so
She's my
talented.
best hype woman.
Yeah.
Aw.
So,
Listen, I'm going to bring a guest host to just talk me up. Our next, he's going to show up and go, listen, you guys don't know how great Josh is.
So let us know when Michaela's going to come in.
yes.
It's just going to be me with a mustache. Joshua couldn't make it because he's out with the orphanages, you know.
I couldn't make it. I like it.
Oh, yes. You couldn't
was
see,
cute.
but I was doing something
There's
Vaguely-
fantastic.
Inappropriate.
vaguely Italian with my hand.
There's great physical comedy.
This isn't
Vaguely
appropriate.
Italian.
All right, sorry. Where were we?
You are
Okay, so
allowed to
Weegee.
continue.
So
Yes.
you were asking if he that was his.
Oh, if that was the crime.
If that was the crime. So I'll tell you what the crime was. He was famous for being at the scene of the crime before the cops even. And what surprises me is I've been researching this for, digging on a little deeper here and there. And not once was Weegee accused of a crime or suspected. He was never like one of the suspects. My gosh.
They never put that together.
No,
But
They
like
never
as
thought-
now,
On
like
this
there's
podcast, I just
like a
cracked the
whole
case.
movie.
Yeah.
There's like a whole movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't remember his like Nightcrawler. Yeah, like where he is a videographer, right? A news crime reporter or whatever, and wants to be first on the scene. And so he decides, well, okay, I'm just gonna start creating the crimes. And so he starts actually like, doing the crimes, and then he's first there.
That's
So-
way easier
But
to do it
Weegee
that
was
way.
never accused
Weegee
of that.
was never accused of that, and I don't think that he would. So here's the deal: he started by he bought a like an apartment. He rented a room that was near like the police headquarters, and then he would show up at police headquarters and just hang out there. He was constantly around police headquarters. He got to know the cops. He would just roam the streets all night long, and he knew the rhythm. He knew the rhythm of the city. Like he just got to know the rhythm of the city, and was often at like fires when they happened and things like that. And then eventually he was able to buy a car. So he bought a shiny new 1938 maroon Chevy Coupe. And he said it's a 2-seater with extra cargo space. And he lived in it.
Okay,
Really?
just like as a side note, speaking of, he's like, he was friends with like the cops and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But like, there are so many serial killers and
Yes.
like criminals that were like best buddies
I
with the
know.
cops. So I'm like, oh man.
I know it feels like he would be, but he never was accused and never suspected. In fact, he actually, through his work, was able to solve a couple of crimes.
Dang.
But before we get to that, I want to say, so he actually, because he was around police headquarters so much and so often, and he was always there when like mob guys were brought in, and he was always
For the perp
there
walk?
at the scene when there was a mob hit that happened. So he was like the first to like photograph the
Did he have mob connections?
dead body. Well, Murder Incorporated actually named him as their official photographer.
Oh dang.
Because basically you weren't anybody until you were photographed by Weegee.
Dead?
None of the gangsters were anybody until they were
Dead.
no, not dead, not always dead. So, like, he's known most for his dead bodies and stuff, but, like, a lot of his, you know, he would photograph the guys at work. He would bring, or at the jail when they were brought in and stuff. And then he would bring in cigarettes, and he would call people for them. And, you know, so he was, like, friends. He was the friend to all. Like, he was very charismatic.
It feels like he was a friend to all in a way that made sure he got what he wanted.
Exactly. Yeah. No, he was always looking out for number one.
Hey, I want to say I feel like I'm doing a really good job finding these red flags.
Yes. Yeah, you are. Yeah, I haven't heard you once say, but he was a good guy.
Yeah, not yet.
Well, he hasn't officially murdered anyone yet.
Yeah,
so
like,
no.
once that happens, she'll be like, you know what, though?
He technically hasn't committed any crimes, and that's why I'm like, nah, I don't like him.
Yeah.
So,
Hold on, wait.
Okay.
So I thought when you said he was like a crime scene photographer, I thought like with the police, like he would show up.
no, he was
But-
like a press, working
Yeah.
for the press.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like Nightcrawler, like the
Yeah.
film. He was a...
So here's a funny story. Like this is like the spirit of Weegee, and like his kind of explains his hustle mentality. So he was at this World Series, and I don't know exactly when this was, but I just remember reading the story. So he photographed the World Series, right? And all these other photographers were there too, and they all got on the train to head back to the newspaper headquarters, and Weegee bribed the train operator to use their private little back like room, and he used it as a dark room. And so when everyone else was showing up with just their negatives, he had prints.
That's funny.
So that was like he wanted to be the best. He wanted to be the first. So because of that, he worked out of his car, and you know, practically lived in it. He also had an apartment, but he practically lived in this car. And I want to ask you, let's play a game. What did Weegee have in his car?
Oh,
Okay. So
Tester.
I've got a list here.
Okay.
Let's see how many you can get right.
Can I just say generic chemicals? For sure, chemicals.
Yeah.
And he probably has like a water bath of some kind to be able to develop.
Actually,
them.
I did not even, like, that didn't even come up as one of the options, but I can't imagine why he wouldn't have
Wouldn't have
had.
that.
Yeah. Because when I learned about him in college, like, they said
if
he
he's
had, like,
developing
dark room. Yeah,
film,
yeah.
he's got to have all that.
Yeah.
So all the stuff to develop film.
Okay.
Okay, that's
His
one
car.
thing.
That's my
A camera.
Still only counts as one.
An extra camera, yes.
Light bulbs.
Yep, extra flash bulbs. Cases of them.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Clothes.
Yeah, change
Yep,
of clothes.
he-
Stogies.
Yeah.
All
Yes.
the
Yeah.
stogies.
Yeah, look at
For
that
sure.
photo.
Yep.
What a toothbrush.
Nope.
Not listed.
Not listed.
Who
Gross.
needs them?
Yeah.
And this is straight from his autobiography.
I feel like there's got to be weird stuff in there, like
What about like
Us.
papers, note-taking stuff, right?
typewriter.
Oh,
a
wow.
full-on typewriter.
Yeah.
Did he have
A
some
typewriter?
sort of
That's crazy.
like radio or?
Yeah, I was gonna say like
Uh-huh.
a police
He
scanner.
was he was the only press photographer that had a license to have the police scanner in his car.
Really?
A
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah, he got special treatment.
special treatment.
Yep.
Yeah, to grease a lot of palms.
Speaking of which, he had salami.
I legit was gonna guess like meat or an old sandwich as like a joke.
Salami.
Should have guessed it. I would have sounded so smart.
Yep. Oop, any other guesses?
Did he have a razor, like to shave? Not.
No, remember he had a
listed.
big giant lumberjack beard.
Yeah, he's
That he cut off
disheveled.
in his
Okay.
youth.
Shoe polish.
Disguises.
Really?
Ooh.
Yeah, disguises.
There's the lumberjack beard you were.
And uniforms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had uniforms.
Uniforms. And
Like he was
disguises.
sneaking into places illegally. That's also a crime.
So I know. I feel like someday we're gonna find out that Weegee actually did some of these crimes. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. But then he's also
like
so there's
Dexter.
like two sides to
Yeah.
Weegee, you guys. There's like this you know, verbose, charismatic egomaniac, right? And then you've got this sensitive soul. Like he's also, you know, said to be very sensitive. So for instance, like there's one of his famous pictures is this one here, and it's like two women just in tears.
I was gonna say they look like an absolute agony.
Oh, agony, because their apartment just burned. The tenement building they lived in just burned, and there was a younger sister and a baby that died in that fire.
No.
Jeez.
And he says, he's like, that photograph still haunts me to this day. I cried when I took that photograph. And he's like, I'll photograph dead monsters all day long. I don't care. He's like, but this kind of stuff gets me. He can't. Yeah. So
It's funny.
He has a heart.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, sometimes you think, in that moment, like, why did you even take a photo?
Yeah.
You know? Like, if you're so heartbroken and stuff. But I used to do photography in college, and it definitely was not my major. It was just a way that I made a little extra money. But I had... So my cousin asked me to do photography for her youngest child's birth. And so I was there and taking photos and that kind of stuff, but things went wrong in the birth. He lives, he's fine.
Yeah.
But like there was lots of concern. And I think they like ushered most people out, but she wanted me to stay. And so I didn't have anything to do except I knew my one job was to take photos. And so it feels weird to be like, why were you taking photos in that moment? But like one of the photos I took was like the nurses all working, and it's like, you know, all these people surrounding this little baby, and there just was a moment where they moved to the side and this little gray ashen baby is being held by like 5 hands, and I snapped that photo, you know, because like I'm like, this is my one job, this is the one thing I can do. And so like in moments like that I can understand why he's like, that photo haunts me, but it's like the one thing I can do.
Well, and actually that photo was one that did the most good because it was used in fire prevention campaigns and things like that to kind of move people to action, to be, you know, more conscientious about their fire prevention and safety stuff. So, yeah. So, do you want to hear the list?
Yeah.
So, he has this police radio, special permission, extra camera, cases of flash bulbs, extra loaded holders. So, that's like rolls of film. So, at this point, he's got rolls. Or holders.
He's rolling deep.
Holders, yeah. Anyway, a typewriter, fireman's boots, so he can run and directly into the fire. Boxes of
That's
cigars.
all you need are boots.
Yeah.
Not just cigars, but boxes of them. Salami, infrared film for shooting in the dark, uniforms, disguises, change of underwear, extra shoes and socks.
Let's change underwear.
We did pretty good on the list.
You guys did really, really good. So, yeah. So, there's a term. Have you heard this? F8 and be there.
What?
F8 and be there.
F8?
Like fate?
Just F8, like the aperture.
Oh, the aperture.
Yeah. So that term was coined by Weegee, or it's attributed to Weegee. Just the idea of, you know, F8. So your f-stop or your aperture it controls your depth of field. Like, so how much is in focus in your camera or in your image. And so when you're doing something like, you know, documentary photography, like photojournalism, you want to have a small enough aperture that you actually capture everything that you need to. So you want that deeper depth of field. And so, so that F8 and be there, just like set your camera and be ready and just be there.
Snap photos.
Yeah, because he was like notorious for being in the right place at the right time, you know?
So his advice is just like be places.
Yes. Yeah. F8, have your camera ready, be there. And that's what he did. Like, he was everywhere, you know? And
Can I just say your notes are so cute?
Are they?
Like, that's a bolded title. Girl. She has photos embedded in this?
I
Don't look at my
copied
notes.
and pasted a lot of things. I didn't write any cute notes to myself like you do.
I do that. Yeah. I do that, yeah.
Yeah.
She said doo-doo.
So one of the things...
Good one.
Solid joke.
So F8 that's a big depth of field.
Yes.
Everything is in focus, right?
Not
Or a
everything.
lot.
So the the smallest aperture on our cameras that we use now is like f/22. I think he was probably most likely shooting at f/16 or f/8, like somewhere in that range. But it's a good mid-range depth of field that still lets in a decent amount of light.
So is he kind of saying like the art, like especially for a news reporter, it's not necessarily about the artistry. It's about just getting any shot is better than no shot. Like.
Yeah, I think that's it. But then he started to get creative. Like he was very conscientious about what he included and what he didn't include in the frame. So and we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe just for our listeners. So depth of field is how much of the photography or the picture is in focus.
Yeah.
Right?
So from the photographer back.
Yeah.
So for instance, like, you know, a lot of people like the really nice blurred background, you know,
Right.
but that's not the kind of photography we're talking about.
So like in a portrait, like on your phone where it blurs the background, what F would that be?
You get a big aperture.
If you did it with a real camera.
So f2.8 or anywhere from f2.8 to like f4.
And then a higher number means more stuff is in focus.
Like everything would be in focus with like an f/22.
Okay.
And proximity matters too. So if I could shoot at f2.8 and if I'm far enough away, everything will still be in focus.
Yeah. My boss and I had this interesting discussion. I imagine you've had a lot of discussions like this because you do a lot of photography stuff. We were talking about what's the point of a picture? Like, he was talking about it because he's going on a vacation and he's just bringing like his phone, obviously, but also the like glasses that take pictures, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that, you know, when he goes into a sacred, whatever, what are those things called?
A temple or something?
Like
Yes.
a mosque
A
or
mosque.
something.
Like,
Yeah.
not a
Like a
cathedral.
cathedral. Yeah.
A cathedral, he can be like, I can still get pictures quickly,
Oh,
you know?
yeah, when they're like, no, please don't take pictures.
Yeah, but we were like, what's the purpose of a picture? Is it about the art or is it about just like giving yourself, is it jogging your own memory?
I love this.
I think that
question
there's
so much.
I think that there's multiple reasons. I think that it kind of depends on the intent of the photographer. Like Weegee seems like he wants to capture and present truth, right? The pictures of the kids on the fire escape and things like that, right? Like when I did photography for a while, I did enough photography jobs to pay for my camera. And then I was like, I don't like people.
You're like, give me some duck pictures. Only ducks from now on, but they can only pay in bread, so.
But those like doing, so I did like bridals and weddings and stuff, right? And
Ugh, I hate doing
it
those.
felt like what I was really trying to do was to hide the truth almost. Because you're capturing these moments and you're absolutely manipulating that moment. And so here's this beautiful picture and they put it up wherever and they display it and it's this amazing picture. But what you don't know is if you take 2 steps back, they're next to like this just totally destroyed shack that
Landfill.
There's
And then the mother-in-law and the mothers-in-law are like fighting or something or like, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think photography can go either way. It's a great way to really present and capture these moments of truth, but it is also this way to just absolutely control what you
truth
are
presented.
presenting.
Exactly. Like how much of our memories are photographs, right? Do we remember the actual event or do we remember the photographs that we've seen of that event, right? From our childhood and stuff like that. And, you know, is photography truth? Like if you think about it, because so much can be cropped out.
Manipulated.
Yeah, manipulated. So let's go to this. I'm going to jump ahead because this is a really cool question and it really ties in with this photo here. So I'm going to show you this photo. I'm going to describe it. It's 2 debutante women, like, you know, members of society. The photo is called The Critic. So if you want to Google it, The Critic.
We'll give you all time to pull that up.
Yeah.
The critic.
It's these two women in tiaras and ball gowns and furs, and they're stepping out of a limousine. They're going to the opening night at the Metropolitan Opera.
Did you say debutantes?
And then, well, I said debutantes, but that's not what they are.
They are old debutantes.
Yes. They are. I couldn't remember like women of standing. I don't know.
They're
rich
dames.
ladies. They are rich ladies wearing all the finery with, one has a look of like, what would you say?
Which one?
That one.
Just like, she's like, definitely feels like she's
Haughty.
better than everybody else.
Yeah, she's haughty. She has a very haughty look.
Superiority.
So a look of superiority. Thank you. Yeah, that's really good. So, and then this woman that she's with says, a lot of the same, you know. She's lifting up her dress so she can walk. And then next to them is this woman who appears to be of lesser means. And the look that she is giving them, it is like, if looks could kill, it's this sneer. And so it's this beautiful dichotomy, this juxtaposition of like high society and the common man, right? And so I love it. I love everything about this picture. I love the way that this woman is looking. But I'll tell you that this photo is staged. So Weegee was going, I know. So Weegee was going to take this picture, but his, he had an assistant, Louis Leota, and he said that they found this woman at one of the local bars, and plied her up with a bunch of wine and brought her to the location and set her there. But here's the thing. They did not tell her what to do. and I think about this and I'm like, okay, that's the question. Like, some people are critical of the critic, right? The photograph. But I feel like, does it make this any less true?
I mean, it's like an interesting thing to think about because the photo is entirely fake, but that situation is a real life situation. Yeah. And it's sometimes, I mean, it's no different than like an artist, a painter, like painting a scenario.
Exactly.
And they use, models and they set it up how they want and they get to portray the image they want. So it's almost like he's bridging between photography and a painting because it is set up and it is portraying the message that he wants. He's just, instead of painting the models, he's photographing them.
Yeah, and he didn't tell this woman how to look,
how to respond.
He just
got her drunk.
He was like, "You're belligerent. You're perfect.
Put her there.
Come here."
Right, and there she is, like. You can tell she's like, what do you, I can just imagine what her.
Well, there's a caption that ran with the original picture.
Okay.
She is aghast at the quantity of diamonds in evidence at a wartime opening of the Met, but the bejeweled ladies are aware only of Weegee's clicking camera.
Yeah.
So he definitely was trying to say something.
Yeah. Weegee actually was very, very interested. And this is where he started to really separate himself from other,
photojournalists?
Yes, sorry. My brain is starting to shut down.
You're good.
Other photojournalists and crime photographers, in that he started to like become really excited or like interested in the onlookers. So the crime itself was important, right? He was like wanted to document that. But as soon as he turned the camera on the gawking crowd and their reactions, and then the two photos could be run together, right? Here's the scene. Here are the onlookers, And
it's like Gladiator. He's like, "Are you not entertained?"
Yeah, exactly. And so there's
get a movie in.
the photo that he's kind of famous for is called "Balcony Seats at a Murder," It was taken in 1939, and so there's a mobster. There's a man that was murdered and he's lying in the doorway of this cafe. It's a very wide shot, and you can see the fire escape and the buildings above and the apartments, and people are leaning out of their windows. And then you've got the policemen and investigators all standing around. And it's just is so interesting. It's just human nature. The fact that we are voyeurs.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, that's something we've been that way always. You know, like the hangings used to have huge audiences. So much so that people had careers by making like, what is that, gallows songs? Where they would write songs and sell them at gallows events. And I mean, like gladiatorial events, and like it's so human nature, which is so wild.
I mean, rubbernecking,
on the freeway.
Yeah, so it's just interesting. But he kind of set himself apart by getting that reaction. So he has sort of become this famous crime photographer and that kind of stuff. So how does that career, I mean I imagine he does that for a while, and then how does he shift out of that, or is that something that he did on purpose? So
he get tired of it?
Well, I think he got to the point where his pictures were running in the papers like every day, and he had newspapers reaching out to him, offering him jobs, and he's like, are you kidding me? I'm a free man. You know, he's like, I will not be tied down.
Nobody can tie me down.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And so he would not be tied down. He didn't want to like sign himself away. He wanted to remain a free agent.
Yeah, because I mean, who would say no to living in a car with a typewriter?
And a whole thing of sausage.
Yeah. So what's interesting?
I'm a free man.
Exactly. So, but he was able to sell the same picture to multiple agencies, right? And so he sold one picture, and then he saw that they ran it, that it was run in another paper, and he went back and he said, how did this? He's like, well, we own that paper too. He says, well, it's another $5. And they said, okay. And then, oh, do you own this paper too? Well, that's another $5. So he was, you know, he didn't shy away from charging. But he loved what he did. He loved it. He loved being out in the streets. He loved the life he was living. He wasn't that concerned about money, but he got tired eventually. So, but because he was constantly in the newspapers, he got a lot of notoriety. The Met became aware of him, and they ran a show. They put some of his pictures up, and then he ended up with a one-man show, and somebody talked to him about doing a book, and that's where he did Naked City.
In the 40s?
Wait, he did a one-man show? Like he did a one-man show, or someone did one about him?
He put one-man shows like where you have like a gallery with all just your pictures in it.
I want to know like what he sounds like.
Oh, I'm sure there's a recording. Find it and then play it. Let me tell you about two crimes he helped solve, and then we can talk about his next part of his career, which is not nearly as interesting.
Okay.
But one crime that he was able to solve was there was a woman who was out. She was a fairly well-to-do woman. She was found dead in her hotel room, strangled and robbed. Okay, in the bathtub, and then they had heard that she was out. She had hired a gigolo that night, and she was out partying with this gigolo. Weegee happened to have been at the same nightclub that this woman was, snapping pictures, and it turns out that in one of his pictures, in the background, was this woman dancing with the gigolo. Nobody could find him until this point. They kind of tracked down Weegee, and through his photograph, they were able to identify and get out and capture the gigolo and arrest him for the murder of this woman.
Were there a lot of gigolos?
I think there were at one
was
point.
It the early 30s?
So,
probably.
yeah.
Okay, I think this is actually him talking.
Okay.
The subject is news photography. This is the most wonderful experience for any man or woman to go through.
What?
It's like
Is this him?
Aladdin's lamp. You rub it, in this case the camera. You push the button and it gives you the things you want. I didn't wait till somebody gave me a job or something. I went and created a job for myself.
He's
Freelance
confessing. And if sometimes you needed to murder a gigolo or two to get the perfect picture.
Yeah. So there was another instance where there was an armed robbery and this woman was described. She got away. And so, of course, he's always by the, in the police area. And they were describing the woman. And he's like, I think I have a picture of that woman. Like, he had taken a picture of her. At one point, she had been, like, I think she had been arrested before or something, or picked up or something. And he took a picture of her. It was memorable to him because she had a rose in her mouth, and he named it the Spanish rose or something. But they were able, when he was able to find the picture and show it to the police and the witnesses. They were able to identify her and say, yeah, this is her. So then they went to get her, and they found out that the gun that she used in this armed robbery was a fake. It was a wooden gun that was painted.
That must have been like good craftsmanship, though.
Yeah.
To like convince people that a wooden gun is like good job.
Yeah.
I mean, not good job on a crime, but like
No, and those were the only two
had-
stories that I found that he, and not that there weren't more, but I kind of feel like he
maybe he did some crimes.
maybe I just feel like
I'm starting to like him.
Yeah, I don't know. Bananos. I think it's Christopher.
I believe it's
Bananas.
Bananas.
I was about to say,
He was
bananas.
he's the author of the book Flash about Weegee, and he said that he is at once gentle and crude, at once sensitive and crass. As a reader, I always rooted for the gentle and sensitive over the crude and crass. Weegee's lesser qualities usually triumphed, leaving me wondering whether this throws a shadow over how we perceive the quality of his photographs. So he did have a gentle side. So
There you go.
yeah.
That's what you
Just
took
like
away
that
from that?
pirate.
About 1947, he moved out to Hollywood because he's like, I need to change of pace. And so he moved out to Hollywood, and he started he worked for like Vogue and other magazines, fashion magazines, and did.
And he kept asking them on the runway, can you just fall over?
Yeah.
I hate this.
is
This
so
composition
much-
is all
You're
wrong.
far too
Look,
upright.
I'll give
Yeah.
you two options. You can fall over or you can get on this horse. One or the
That's
other.
the way I like it.
Yeah. So he started doing these, he just was doing paparazzi type stuff, and he got bored of that. And so then he started doing these trick lens. He developed these trick lenses and did these weird caricatures of movie stars.
Get on the Instagram, folks, and check out the images
graceful.
that Kelly will probably put up.
So that's what he started to do. These weird trick lenses, kind of kaleidoscopic, more like funhouse mirror type stuff.
Very flattering.
Yeah.
And I think he was trying to push himself and convince himself that, that this was art, and not that it isn't. I think every artist tries to find their thing, and everything we do, it's not. I feel like, it just wasn't as powerful. Like, it doesn't communicate the emotion and the passion that he was able to do in his early work. Yeah. And he's still famous. I had no idea that second half of his career even existed until I researched it.
So the images are definitely not compelling, right? But you said that he developed these trick lenses, right? Mm-hmm. So these are pictures that my kids would take with a funky filter on their phone, and we would definitely throw them away.
Yeah.
You'd laugh and then throw them away.
Yeah, but he was doing something maybe unique and.
Well,
it was new
for
that
the
no
time.
one had ever done.
You know what's kind of funny? This is hilarious, but we never hear about failed artists.
Mm-mm.
Like Brandon's favorite, Picasso, right?
Failed artist.
Who he learned to make regular art, and then he was like, I'm gonna do it different,
way.
and he was going to do it his way with triangles and stuff. Anyway, right? And everyone's like, oh, that's amazing. But you never think about, like, there were other people who also had ideas like Picasso, but it didn't catch on for whatever reason.
Yeah. Van Meegeren.
George Braque.
With the deer.
George Braque it developed Cubism with Picasso. They worked together.
And nobody cared about him.
No,
Really?
hardly anybody knows the name George Braque.
I certainly don't.
Yeah.
And it's funny to look at this where we're like, oh yeah, he was an artist. He definitely had a lot of talent in terms of taking pictures. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, I'm going to do my own thing. And we're like, it wasn't great, buddy. Like,
it's true. It's actually kind of like encouraging a little bit to see that though. Like that's a really good point. Because like, I think that we have this idea that you kind of always have to be successful and always have to be producing.
Like the fact that this work is not enduring doesn't take away from the fact that his earlier work
still is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like I think that people get this idea that you like everything you make has to be a masterpiece if you're going to be an artist or if you're going to do art.
Yeah.
But like really a small percentage of what you make is a masterpiece.
Art is all about failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over and over.
It's
and over.
like
to produce something new, you have to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And by definition, not all experiments are successful.
Exactly. And I tell my students all the time, in art, there's more right answers than wrong answers, really. It's just about finding the combination that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
I disagree. There's way more terrible art than good art.
Okay, but that's actually really true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I should change my saying.
Yes.
There are
You
way
need to
more
bring-
wrong answers.
Bring those students down.
You have a 10% chance of succeeding in this class.
You can still succeed in the class, just know all of your art's going to suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah.
How do you want me to cut that part out?
Let's end the podcast on that note. So go. Fail, you miserable clods.
Well, and if you think, okay, so if you think about how many photographs Weegee took, right? Thousands and thousands and thousands. And his work was all about just being in the right place at the right time, and his ability to, I think he had to be sensitive to the human condition. Mm-hmm. He had to be
Or at least
an
his elbows were.
empathetic person to be able to see the emotion and capture that emotion. Like, to notice what's going on, to feel what's going on with the viewers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Weegee.
Yep. Weegee the famous.
Weegee the famous.
The very first influencer.
Actually,
like
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for Becky Suba. Oh, yeah.
Is that the Magundo?
Thank you, Dajany, for coming and doing that. It was really fun to just be part of the shenanigans. And super interesting. So thanks again, everybody, for coming. And as always, go do some art. But don't do any crimes.
Unless you're a photographer and then do some crimes.
So you can take
In order
pictures.
to
Not
produce art.
serious crime.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
That's it.
The end.
Bye.
Bye.
Have you ever played that game where you go like 1, 2, 3 and you both say a word? And then you try and get to where you
The
both
same
say a
word.
word? The same word?
I've never played
No.
that game.
Okay, let's just show you. Do
Okay.
you remember? Okay, so
So how do you get the same word? Like
we just
say things that are related?
You say a word, so okay.
Yeah.
So you're both trying.
1,
Oh my
2,
gosh.
3,
Peacock.
dragon. Ooh, that was a good one. So now we have to
Peacock and
find
dragon.
what works with peacock and dragon. Okay.
It needs to be related.
How to relate them. Okay. Hold on.
No, stop! Don't think.
No, don't think.
I
Okay.
know the obvious one.
1, 2, 3, fly.
Feathers.
Fly. Okay. I don't know. 1, 2, 3,
Wings.
light. Oh man.
One.
What is
Did you
it?
say lights?
Blue.
I was gonna say sky.
Blue and sky.
That's pretty close. Okay.
I thought for sure both of them would say Phoenix.
Uh,
1, 2,
I think one of them
3,
did.
clouds.
They did it!
It's a good game.
This game is insane.
You art teachers, man, you sure know how to have a good time.
Yeah,
We really
I never,
yeah,
never
kind
played
of.
that game.